in the morning, I would take my still air box and I would put it in a 74 degree temperature, right? And right when I did that, I would fan it a whole lot. Fan it so a lot of stuff, you want to promote evaporation. And by doing that temperature change, okay, you will, and that's the greatest thing in the world for this thing. I've never done it this way, but this is the greatest thing in the world if you want to really grow some good stuff, right? You want it to be cold for, half of the day, and you want it to be warm for the other half. 68, 69 down here, and 74, 73 during the other half of the day. And then fan it. When you're when you move it into the hot air thing, it can hold a lot more water in the air, right? And so it'll evaporate a lot of the water off of the mycelium. And they love that. That's what you want. You want that evaporation. You want that cycle of evaporation and condensation. Okay. So I just keep moving it back and forth. And when it was in the warm climate, I might wait for it to warm up first. I move it into the warm climate, and then I wait, a couple hours so the box is warmed up. And then I would take because you're going to have lids in there. Remember, when you put the 6-quart bin into the bigger bin, this actual steel air box, right? You have the lid on it, and you never open up that steel air box ever again until harvest. So the lid is still in there. You use that lid to fan, and you want to fan and try to get it to evaporate and let it be nice and warm in there. Then put it back into the cold so that everything condenses. It goes back onto the mycelium patch. That's the best way to do it. And remember, when you're fanning, you're doing it inside this steel air box. So the air that you're fanning is all clean air because it had to come through the micropore tape, which blocks out most or all, if not all, contaminants. Okay. So you never open the lid to fan. You use the gloves that you put into this to pick up the lid and fan it. You don't open up the big bin. And another last thing I wanted to bring up was the temperature difference. Now, any living organism, this is why Eskimos can live in, igloos. If you get a small enough space, you can pretty much heat a room with your own body temperature. Okay, and this is the same for any living organism. So the mycelium will make heat, okay? And so if you want to store your, say for fruiting, I wanted to put it at 69 degrees in the morning, at night, and I wanted to have it at 74 degrees in the daytime. I wouldn't put it in a room that was 69 degrees because it's going to be 2 degrees hotter in the box. So I would put it at 67 degree room. That way inside the box it can get down to 69. If I put, during the day I want it to be 74 degrees, I would put it in a room that was 72 degrees. That way the box will get down to 74 degrees. See what I'm saying? Now your first flush, when you start seeing the veils underneath the mushrooms start to break and you can see the spores, right before that or right at that moment you want to harvest. You do not want them to spore all over your mycelium. Wherever the spores fall, you'll never get another mushroom out of that patch. Okay? So you want to get them out right before they fall or right before the veil breaks. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done with this video. I just wanted to talk about the holes you put into these bins where you're storing stuff that needs to breathe. Usually you try to put half of the holes on the bottom and half of the holes on the top. The reason why is, like I said, living organisms, even dying organisms, they're dead. because of decay. They will emit a certain amount of heat. So the mycelium is producing heat. It rises. It'll go through the upper hole, okay? And then if you have your stuff in 6-quart bins, you should be able to put these other holes lower than the actual top of the 6-quart bin. Okay, it depends on what size you have. If you don't have enough room, you'll have, they're all jammed in there, you'll have to put the hole a little higher. But if you can get away with it and there's enough space, put the lower hole, like an inch from the bottom of the tub, almost at the bottom. That way, as the heat rises and goes out the hole, cold air or, room temperature air can come in at the bottom, and you can have oxygen in there, and, evaporation. You can fruit 4 times if you want, but each time it's going to be less and less, most times. After the first 2 flushes, it's not as good as the whatever. Because think about it, every time you cut a mushroom down, you're going to have a stalk there, a stump. And no mushroom is going to go again in that stump area. So the more mushrooms you already grew, the less you can grow in the future. Which is another why you're supposed to put casing soil on top of the mycelium. When you're done fruiting, right, and you harvest, here's your mycelium, there's your mushroom. You get a sharp knife and you cut it right where that red line is, right above the mycelium. And when you're done with your first flush, all you have to do is start at the beginning, right? These are in 6-quart these are in 6-quart bins. So you harvested everything, so it's flat now, the mycelium, you know what I mean? It's pretty flat. You put a 1/4 inch of that same casing soil that you used to put on the top and bottom layer of your original, block. And you just cover everything up so you can't see any mycelium. And you spray it down with water, spray down the bin and the insides and the lid, and put the lid back on this 6-quart bin, and put it in the bigger bin that's acting as a still air box, right? You just repeat the process. You wait, a certain amount of time, you check it. When you have 80% of the mycelium has colonized that top layer by 80%, you'll start seeing pinning. Well, then you just take the lid off of not the big steel air box, but off of the 6-quart container. You spray around the large steel air box. On the inside, you give it a spray down, not on the 6-quart box. And then you just wait. You don't have to spray it no more. You're just basically waiting for it to fruit again. Usually when you fruit the first and second time, what happens is the first time you'll have on the ends, right? But I think it's because of the airflow. You're more near the holes on the edges, and so you have more growth. But the first flush would be like the blue part. All these mushrooms would be coming up, and the red part, you wouldn't have anything. So on your second flush, mostly it would be here. But if you put casing soil down, the mycelium can grow up and over top of the stumps of the previous mushrooms, and you can have a better second flush. That's why you put another layer of casing soil down. Plus it holds in the moisture, you know what I mean? It feeds the mycelium, and it's resistant to both molds and bacteria. So, now what size holes do you want in these bins? Usually about 2 to 3 inches. It all depends on, how big your bin is, how much stuff you have in the bin. Is it winter time? Is it summertime? Are you in a dry climate, a warm climate? It's a lot of variables to really tell you exactly, how big the hole should be. But I would put them between 2 and 3 inches. And if it's like a 54 quart tub, I'd put like one hole on each side. So I think that's all I can think about to tell you for growing mushrooms. The only thing left to do is actually grow some mushrooms. So the next video that I make, it will be me, germinating some spores and growing some mushrooms instead of just talking about it. Anyways, y'all have a great day, and always remember, science is great.